You're listening to the Never Heard of It podcast. I'm Shawn Harwell.
And I'm Craig Moorhead. And of course, this is the podcast where we look at all the movies that have fallen. God damn it. Can we try one more time?
Yeah, there was no way that was not going to trip us up again. I got excited there for a second. I was like, oh, wow. We just nailed this.
And Never Heard of It is the podcast where we take a look at the movies that have fallen through our cracks.
That's right, and today I think we may be looking at two movies just by pure accident, but we can get straight into that. And the movie that we had talked about the last time we spoke, I asked you if you had heard of a movie called The Swap, and you told me that you had not. And then some time went by, and did you ever hear of The Swap before sitting down to watch it, Craig?
No, I'd never heard of The Swap. It's a little tough because The Swap as a title is not very distinctive. But the first thing that came to my mind was that Jason Bateman movie about him and some semen in a turkey baster a little while ago.
Yeah.
But I figured that was probably not what you were talking about.
No, that's the Switch, if I'm
The Switch,
not mistaken.
exactly.
I haven't seen.
The Switch, The Swap, you know. But
okay.
So no, I'd never heard of this.
Okay, well, let me tell you why I picked this. I was just farting around, as I'm prone to do, on Amazon Instant Prime, and I see this little thumbnail for a movie called The Swap, and it's got De Niro making a pistol out of his finger, you know, classic boys playing cops and robbers, whatnot. I'm like, okay, what's this, right? And the little description says this is an early De Niro film. 1969 is the year they're showing, which casts him as a New York film editor working on a documentary about blah, 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 blah. I didn't care. I'm like, oh, sweet. Early, we're talking 1970s era almost, De Niro movie I've never heard of, and he's a film editor. Craig, you're an editor. I thought this was perfect for us.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what fueled my decision to want to see this thing. And not only that, like, yeah, the poster has this great tagline. It says, he's tough, he's cool. He's murder on women and their death on him, which that sounds like a good movie to me, right?
Sounds pretty crazy.
And so, well, here's obviously where it gets a little crazier. As we discussed briefly before doing this, I sat down to watch this on Amazon Instant, and I press play on The Swap, and instantly pops up the titles for something called Samsung.
Yes.
And there's De Niro, and yes, he's working as an editor, and I have no clue what the heck's going on. And then it turns out you sat down to watch this movie somewhere else.
Yes.
And you press play on The Swap, and what happened?
I put off watching the movie for so long. There was such a gap between the time when we decided to watch the movie and I finally watched it.
Right.
That I was too embarrassed to ask you where it was. So... But I thought you had said Amazon, and for some reason, I don't know how I missed it, but I searched for it. Maybe not actually on Amazon, maybe through Yidio or something, but I searched for it, and it didn't come up, and I thought, oh no, like I'm supposed to find this somewhere else. So then I looked on Crackle, I didn't see it on Crackle. I actually found it on YouTube, and I started watching it there, but then I was like, oh, this looks terrible. Like the quality is awful. I got to find it somewhere else. So then I found it on snagfilms.com.
Okay.
And the quality is exactly the same. It's completely terrible.
It doesn't look good. What I saw on Amazon, and it sounds like, the internet was probably trying to do us a favor by steering us away from these two movies. But that said, it turns out, there's kind of an interesting story behind this thing. And so I feel like that's sort of where we got to start, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's how it's
Why are there two movies that are clearly have some footage in common?
Yeah. And I've seen one, and you've seen the other, and that's about it. So Samsung, apparently, yes, was made in 1969. And this is the movie that I watched, and it is about De Niro. He plays a New York film editor. He goes into his office, which is very, dark, dank office. He's working on actual film, which is kind of fun to see. He's working on a documentary about Nixon, and one of the things that actually I did find interesting about watching this was the footage they were doing that he was cutting was about some sort of like a grape pickers strike or something that was going on during the Nixon administration. I was like, that's kind of cool. I want to know more about that. And of course, I haven't looked it up, but still, it's on the to-do list. And then there's a great little moment within this thing where De Niro, I think it's just when he comes in, he opens up the fridge, right? And I know, it's like a production office. It's a messy fridge. There's a baseball in this refrigerator, Craig, that has a word written in ink on the baseball, and I just one guess at what it says.
The swap?
No, it says ball.
There we go.
He doesn't acknowledge that there's a baseball in the refrigerator that says ball. Mm-hmm. It's just there. I don't know why. Anyway, he gets a phone call from some friends, or a friend. I don't remember which. I think there's a little bit of parallel action to another couple. Their names are Andrew and Erica. And they're very obviously a somewhat unhappy married couple. There's the creepiest, weirdest, longest prelude to sex scene that I've seen in a long time for a movie that's not like a horror movie or really even a thriller. And this guy, Andrew, is played by an actor named Jared Mickey, who he looks like bizarro Sam Donaldson. You know who Sam Donaldson is? Like the news anchor? Yeah. Like that's all I kept thinking was this guy just looks like a weird. And he's sort of all over his wife, but again, just like staring too much. And it's designed to put you off and succeeds in that manner. Erica Moore, the wife, is played by an actress named Jennifer Warren, who I did recognize, and I looked her up, and she's in the movie Slapshot. I think she plays one of the players' wives. If you're a fan of that movie, I am. I love it. So anyway, They invite De Niro to go to, I think it's just a house in the Hamptons, basically. And so, it's sort of bringing this kind of film editor who works in the dark, who obviously doesn't have a ton of money, into the world of the rich. And as soon as they get there, De Niro is like, why haven't you invited me here before? He's like complaining. And I'm just like, dude, seriously, just be glad that they invited you there. And so the rest of the movie takes place here in the Hamptons. And I'm telling you, like, this is like 79 of the 89 minutes. And there's another woman there named Carol, who's this very alluring blonde woman. And De Niro's, completely smitten with her from the word go. It's just one of these things where he falls in love with her right from the start, kind of, I guess. I don't know. They hook up, they have sex in the other couple's bed. It's just weird and icky. And then Andrew and Erica, the unhappy couple, Andrew's just like after this other girl that De Niro's into the whole time and just completely blatantly obvious about her right in front of his wife. It's just gross, so gross. And ultimately ends up hooking up with her on a boat. And so Erica is like, that's it, I can't take it anymore. I think they call like the Coast Guard or somebody. There's some other boat that comes and takes her off of that boat. And De Niro's like, I'm going to go with you, because he knows, this girl that I thought was into me is now hooking up with creepy Sam Donaldson. He leaves. They go back to shore, to the parking lot where the car is. She gets in her car and says something to him. Don't even remember. Don't really care. Drives off. Fast speed, gets in a wreck around the corner, dies. The end.
That's the end.
That is the end. And not only that, it was bookended. That was also the beginning. I did leave that out because I don't want to spoil anything. But it sort of starts with a cop saying, "Did you see it happen?" Which, that's kind of a cool way to start like a mystery.
Sure.
But that's not exactly what we get here. So that, in a very small nutshell, is what Sam's song is about, even though on Amazon they called that the swap. Because I was wondering, I was like, it looks like they sort of swapped like partners at the end of this movie. That's why it's called the swap. I was still so confused.
The swap that I saw is very different. Where to begin? Clearly, everything that has De Niro in it is from this original movie.
Okay.
So some of what we watched was the same, although the opening is probably the same as the opening of Sam's song, where he's walking through, seems like the streets of New York, He goes to his office. He puts things in the refrigerator. I don't remember there being a ball that said ball on it. But that could have happened. Maybe I couldn't see it.
Was there the Nixon documentary?
There was no Nixon documentary. So in this one, he's going to his office, and as he's approaching his office, you see gloved hands going through film reels, film cans. And then you cut out to see De Niro, arriving at the door, opening the door. The hands stop suddenly. The person goes and hides. And then De Niro comes in. He does the business with the refrigerator. He flips on something, and you just hear moaning and clearly glorious lovemaking going on.
Okay.
And then he sits down and he has the same phone conversation.
Okay.
Which means absolutely nothing to me. And then the intruder knocks him over the head with something. And it's too dark in there to tell what the hell it was. So,
but do you actually see De Niro himself get knocked over the head?
No, you see it from behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can kind of see where this is going now, huh?
Exactly. So, and then, okay, so you've given me almost nothing. De Niro never feels like he's in any kind of danger.
Because he wasn't.
And then as soon as he's knocked out, it cuts to a title card that says 10 years later. I thought, oh man, okay, almost nothing happened.
Right.
But let's just skip to 10 years later. Maybe he's been knocked out for 10 years. So 10 years later, we are inside of a prison.
Oh.
Okay, and there's a guy who's about to get out of prison. His name is Vito. And it takes a very long time with a very small amount of shots.
Right.
To get Vito out of that prison.
But he's just being released, right?
Yes. He's just being released. Right. So there's a sequence. I would say there's a shot that maybe lasts as long as 2 full minutes of just over the shoulder of someone who works at the prison giving him his stuff.
So you're riveted at this point.
Completely riveted.
Okay.
Completely riveted.
And the quality.
This movie helped me, yes. Yeah. Gave me lots of time to think about lots of things.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I really appreciate about it.
Yeah. It's meditative. So I think that's what they call meditative.
It is, exactly. So Vito gets out, and he's a total stereotypical Italian Goomba. No idea what put him in prison in the first place, but I guess he's a bad guy. I guess he's a gangster of some kind. He meets up with some
gangster
goon.
of love?
Maybe. Actually, probably, considering how this version goes. He meets a guy outside the prison. He tells the guy, I want to go see my brother's grave. In the cemetery, he's looking at a gravestone, and he seems very upset suddenly. And he's talking about, Sam, when I find who killed you, I'm going to kill that person. And it's this point where I'm like, I wonder if De Niro's name is Sam. Because I have no idea. I have no clue what's happening right now.
Yeah.
It's a completely different set of people. And then I think, oh, this must be what Shawn was thinking I was going to find really funny, probably, is that De Niro gets killed in the first 2 minutes of this movie, and he doesn't appear anywhere else.
I do find that funny. I at least got 89 minutes of De Niro.
Oh, man. Well, no, I still got more De Niro,
okay.
But it made less sense, I think, than what Sam's song made for you. So The Swap is a revenge movie, okay?
Ooh, okay.
So Vito's going to go and talk to people who have been out of prison, I guess, for the last 10 years, outside of prison, who know what happened, so he can figure out why his brother got killed. He goes to talk to Erica Moore. Now that's a very familiar name for you because yes. Erica Moore was the name of the wife, right?
Yes.
And she begins to tell him the story that leads us into the flashback that they use the Samsung stuff.
Although,
okay?
Wait, he talks to Erica?
He talks to Erica. Now don't get ahead of me.
Because
I know.
I thought she was dead.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, not in this version.
Okay.
But Shawn, it gets even weirder though, okay? Trust me.
I love this. This is like David Lynch.
And keep in mind, I'm not going to outline every single time. There's a long shot where nothing happens. And like maybe someone just stands somewhere.
I'm just going to go ahead and assume that's like 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah. So he goes to talk to Erica Moore, and she starts to tell him the story that leads us to the flashback that was Samsung. And so it's De Niro, and he's in the car with this man and this woman, and the woman's talking to him, and about nothing that matters to me because I'm watching a revenge movie and Sam is dead, right? So none of this means anything to me. They're just talking about weird stuff. And they get to this house. At some point, he's sitting in a wheelchair.
Yes.
there's all this bizarre business with a wheelchair and how he wants to pretend like he's hurt,
Right.
and none of that makes sense. They end up falling into a pool and all that. So yes, so that all happens, and yes, there's a lot of weird business with this woman whose name is Carol in my movie, and yeah, there's weirdness between the husband and Carol, and we get to the boat and all that stuff with the boat that you were talking about, where people start hooking up with Carol on the boat.
Right. That's in the swap.
Yes, this is all in the swap.
Wow. Okay.
It's all being told by Erica. Okay, but it's at this point, Shawn, where I'm trying to figure out who. Okay, so Erica is telling the story. I'm trying to figure out which woman is Erica.
Right.
Like, because I mean, the copy's really bad, but she doesn't look like these women. But maybe she's the long-haired woman because I haven't really gotten a close-up of her.
Okay.
So I decide, okay, well, that's who Erica is, and then then she starts telling stories where that woman is not involved. So I'm like, what? I don't understand. Is she telling stories where she wasn't there? Like, is that how bad this movie is? And I wrote that note down. I'm like, this is terrible.
Yes.
She's telling stories where she had no idea what was going on. And then I come to realize that they have cast a completely different actress to play Erica Moore in the
what is
10 years later footage.
Yeah, the present.
Yeah, and it's actually Sybil Danning, who, if people watch lots of B movies, they've seen lots of Sybil Danning. That was so confusing. I mean, she looks nothing like the original Erica Moore.
No, I'm looking at her,
Yes.
IMDb. She would be a closer double for the other woman, the Carol woman.
Absolutely. And that's where my brain went.
Yeah.
So with no explanation.
So it's even more confusing that she looks like the other person.
Yeah, she totally does, and it's exactly what I thought it was. But everything about her story she was talking about was based on that on the other woman. So a terrible choice. Yeah, nothing but confusion. And he leaves there knowing almost nothing. I don't even know what information he got out of that. And of course, that scene went on for a long time.
Right. And does this set him off on his revenge, basically? Is that what we're supposed to be launching?
Not
Ideally?
at all. He's
No? Okay.
he's already 100% ready to go after revenge. Like, he goes in there looking for revenge.
Oh, okay.
And just he wants to kill somebody. He just needs a name. So that's it. And but I did want to share this great line uttered by Erica Moore in my movie. He asks her if she's ever met this one other particular character who also means nothing in the movie. But he asks her if she's ever met this character, and her line is, yes. Well, no, to be precise.
Okay.
I puzzled over that for a very long time.
That's, I guess, like a metaphysical, spiritual meeting that happened
maybe.
in a
Yes.
different lifetime.
We've always known each other.
Or in a different movie.
So that goes on. Anyway, Vito goes and meets with Carol, the other woman, goes and meets with the dude, the husband, talks to all these people. He ends up running into a porn actress who reveals to him that his brother was working in porno movies. And then he decides he needs to see some movie. And, one particular movie that he was tipped off by, I think, Carol, who's now the wife of the husband.
A porn movie?
What's the point? Yes, it's a porno movie.
Okay.
But they go and watch the movie. It turns out the husband was involved in the movie. And he wants to be governor or something. and so then Vito goes and kills the guy in the bathtub.
Why?
The end. Because he decided that was what had happened was his brother had this movie, and that's why he got killed.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it might have been a little more airtight than that, Shawn, but I'm not. I didn't. At some point, I stopped paying attention. But here's the thing. Here's what's kind of interesting about it, and I think it's actually worth sort of suffering through in a way. For one thing, it provides a very good example of how a slowly paced movie doesn't work. Like, if you watch
that's a good point.
If you watch something like, say, by Kubrick, and then you watch this back to back, in both of them you're going to see a lot of shots, static shots, where there's really not necessarily a lot of things happening. But I would say generally in a Kubrick movie, you feel something. There's there's a tension,
Right.
or there's a beauty to it, or there's something really that tells the story. Whereas in The Swap, it's like an empty frame.
It's not Kubrick.
It's certainly not Kubrick.
Right.
So it's kind of good for that reason, and it reminded me of something John Carpenter said in an interview a long time ago. Kind of the secret to making a really low budget movie is to play your shots as long as you possibly can. And he said that about Assault on Precinct 13.
Okay. Was that to give yourself more stuff in the editing room, or just...
Well, mainly so that you can end up with a feature-length movie.
Gotcha. But I think both of these movies, from the sound of it, were trying to hit that definite 80-plus minute mark.
Absolutely.
By any means necessary.
Yes. And I would say, in Assault on Precinct 13 is another good example for that reason alone. If you're looking to take that advice, look at how John Carpenter stages that stuff, because he does. He has lots of very long shots. Mm-hmm. There's a shot at the beginning where a police officer walks down a sidewalk from his front door, walks down a sidewalk, gets in his car, and starts driving. Nothing else really happens, but for some reason, it's perfect. Like, it takes a long time. It eats up plenty of your feature time, but I guess, it looks nice. It's well composed. The actor seems to have a purpose and a motivation to go somewhere.
Neither of those things make sense to me.
Well, then maybe I'm alone. No, but that was really something I thought a lot about, because there were so many scenes where nothing would be happening. There was a really long sequence where someone sneaks into Vito's hotel room to kill him. And so they break into his hotel room, and you just see feet, and they're sneaking through the room slowly. Cut to his face, he's sleeping, and they're sneaking, and he's sleeping, and they're sneaking, and he's sleeping.
They're only like a foot away from the bed. As soon as they enter the room, right? But it takes them 6 hours to get there.
Yeah, toward the end of the movie, somebody is trying to kill him with a gun with a silencer on it, and I'm just like, boy, you should have had that gun with a silencer then, because then you could have walked in, shot him, and left. But instead, this person goes in, turns on the gas in a hotel room, and then leaves. And then people rescue him.
That raises several questions. Yeah.
Yeah, right? That's maybe the worst assassination attempt I've ever heard.
If you are going to watch this movie, and it's a bad movie. I'm not going to say anything other than that, and don't take anything else away from that.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, even in this, you can tell De Niro is a stud, man. Like there's so many good moments with him, but it is interesting to watch him, especially at this point in his career, to see what it looks like when he doesn't have a good script, when he doesn't have, Mean Streets or Godfather 2 or any of those early movies that he's known for. But these still, like, there's a couple moments in this, like, there's this extended sequence where, for whatever reason, like, he and Carol are they're walking around forever on this thing, but some of that stuff is kind of neat, and it goes into this, like, nonverbal sequence where, like, he's just sort of reenacting soldiers dying and getting shot on the beach and, like, doing all these, like, elaborate, like, death falls.
Yeah, and that was in mine too, actually.
Okay, yeah. I figured it was, because that's where the poster image came from for the swap. And I liked that sequence. I mean, there's no way in hell that just wasn't probably improvised by De Niro himself, right?
I assume so, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's moments where I'm like, there's some interesting stuff here. Mm-hmm. You only seek it out if you're just dying to see something. But there's a couple little things that I do want to bring up. I mean, you brought up a line of dialogue that made no sense, and there were a few in here, and a couple of those were De Niro too, which he may have also improvised. There was one where I wrote down, he says, "People with money have a certain look to their skin. It kind of grows." No clue what that means. Like, I just don't know. But then there's also part of the thing is, like, Sam is, he's an editor, but he wants to make a movie or he's trying to write a script, and like this comes up a couple times, but not often at all. I mean, like his job is such a throwaway thing in this movie.
Yeah.
But there's a few little moments where he sort of talks about movie making and like what he wants to do, and he tells this like. They go to this bar, and there's a guy there that's supposedly like a producer, I think, right?
Yeah.
And the whole scene is weird. Like Sam De Niro shows up with Carol, and the creepy Sam Donaldson immediately like hones in on her like a moth to the flames. Like, you want to dance? You want to dance? And it's just like, again, so creepy. But so De Niro is like sitting there talking to this producer guy, and he's like telling him about this idea for a movie he had that was about like guppies, fish or whatever. It was awful. It was so bad. But it's not like supposed to be funny necessarily.
Right.
But I wrote down what the producer says.
Listen to me, kid. There is very little future in dog and goldfish movies. Do you have any scripts? Scripts is where it's at.
Wow.
But there's so many little things that, I mean, if you want to just watch the movie to like find all the stuff that's just so bad, it's kind of fun. There's little things like when they drive to the parking lot to go catch the boat. It's this big dirt gravel lot, right? Mm-hmm. Tons of free parking spaces. The creepy Sam Donaldson finds the one spot where there's like a puddle right beside the door that the other person's getting out. I'm like, what a dick. That's kind of a dick move. And then also on the boat, there's like I can't remember the sequence, but for some reason there's this woman who just up and pulls a Mickey Mouse alarm clock out of her purse. No idea what the motivation was behind these like choices from the filmmakers, but there they are. They're kind of fun to see. But yeah, it's a bit of a chore to get through this thing, man.
Also, I would say watching this on Snag Films, which is, I guess, a free site.
Yeah,
I didn't have to pay for anything, and it was ad supported.
I thought it was mostly documentaries, though. This is news. Maybe
and
I'm
it may
thinking
be
of something else.
No, there are a lot of documentaries on there.
Okay.
But
free plug for Snag Film.
Yeah, well, kind of. They're not going to like this. Not that they're listening, but something was up with their ad system, because half the time, like, their ad would start playing over the movie. So I would just be hearing the audio, and this ad for like vacuum cleaners comes on.
Did it make it any better?
That probably got my attention focused back onto the movie.
Well, I had one very kind of weird moment watching Samsung,
yes.
where, and maybe you saw this as well, but there's when Carol and Sam are on the beach, like Carol says something about like, what's your sign? And De Niro's like, I don't believe any of that crap. Or she's like, well, but you got a sign. Everybody who has a birthday. When's your birthday? And so Sam says he was born on April 19th. And guess when I watched this movie, Craig?
No.
April 19th. That's right.
That's spooky, man.
Get out the Ouija board. Let's do this.
Man. I am going to get out the Ouija board.
Yeah, it will mean nothing.
Oh.
But anyway, so yeah, the fun of that is nothing. But it did make me, again, like you and your vacuum cleaner, perk up for a little bit and get back to the movie, sadly. And so I think what happened, surprisingly, there just doesn't appear to be much information about how these two movies existed, right?
Right.
All I could find was really on Wikipedia, and like the entry for Samsung is barely a paragraph, right?
Right.
And so it looks like, yes, this was made in '69, and it was a very early performance by De Niro. Obviously, he took off after this. And then a completely different director, that's the only thing I thought, well, maybe I can forgive this if the swap was made by the same filmmaker. And he's like, look, nobody saw my movie with De Niro, and now he's a star. I'm going to just recut this thing. But it's not. It's a different director entirely.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, at least it's credited to a different director, Jordan Leondopoulos.
Oh, no. That is the same guy.
John Shade is what he says. This is saying that Samsung was directed by.
Oh,
okay. Well, on IMDb it says Jordan. All right, hang on. This is okay. Samsung, it says, was directed by John Broderick and John Shade. Okay, so maybe, gotcha.
So he had something to do with the first one.
John Shade, which I guess is like an appropriate last name for a freaking shady-ass move here. He looks like he just completely took what he had from Samsung and cut this into what sounds like a worse movie. And I don't know why, if you're gonna even try to capitalize on that, why not put more or make it about De Niro at least? It sounds like it's not even about him. It's like it's about his brother. But the only thing that's sort of like footnote about it is that here's the line. I'll just read the line because I love it.
Sure.
It says, Robert De Niro was angered that Canon Films took his previously shot footage and inserted it into an entirely new movie. Legal action was almost taken. So I don't know if that means there was some sort of settlement or if this movie got shelved, like, De Niro's lawyers were like, you have to shelve this for X number of years or what.
Yeah.
If anybody out there knows, I would love to hear about this because, it's fascinating in that sense. A dude made, I wonder how he even lucked to getting, even early De Niro in his film if he was just like knew him from New York or something.
Well, he must have. And it came so early in his career. Mm-hmm. He'd done almost nothing. A couple of shorts. He did a Brian De Palma movie, but even that one is not exactly famous, it looks like. So yeah, by the time this had come out, he had done Godfather 2 and Taxi Driver. The interesting thing too is on his IMDb, the swap is listed as as archive. It's not even listed in his movies.
Wow. Well, and what's also crazy is on IMDb for Samsung, the poster image that they have is for something called Line of Fire, which I don't know if that was an alternate title for Samsung or for
the swap.
Swap. I think that was an alternate title for the swap.
It has to be because that's Vito right there on the front.
Yeah, there would be absolutely no point in calling Samsung. So anyway, you can see that clearly this is like confused the entire internet.
Yes.
Amazon, which obviously Amazon owns IMDb, but they got it wrong on like several accounts. So yeah, I would love to know more about what's up with this thing and how it came to be. But yeah, I think it's a good lesson. If you're lucky enough to work with a good actor, why would you burn that bridge by trying to completely milk it out for another movie? It's just such a tactless, crappy thing to do, and I don't know if it killed that guy's career, but you almost kind of hope so. I don't know.
He didn't do much after that, that's for sure.
It looks like he's got 2 credits, The Swap and Samsung, and then 2 he worked
He's the editor of Wolfen
and The Exorcist. Yeah. Well, he wasn't the editor of Exorcist, he was the supervisor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it seems like he could have done. And,
snap! Listen to this trivia. Became an English professor at City College in New York. I bet we can find this guy.
Wow. Oh man, yeah.
Let's do it. Somebody out there,
interview him.
Yeah, email him. Let's get to the bottom of this.
He was nominated for an Oscar, for goodness sake. The other interesting thing, something else to note, is as poor as The Swap is, the revenge story is somewhat interesting. And I guess what I mean is, it sort of proves to me how durable the revenge genre is.
Oh, yeah.
Because even with this, which is a complete mess and just utterly confusing, there's that through line that you just can't destroy. Or at least this didn't destroy it. At least stayed with that. Like, he wanted to kill somebody, and at the end he did. And that was the thrust of the whole movie. And it was easily organized along that line.
Sure. Look at the current climate. Liam Neeson has had a complete resurgence based on the revenge plot. It looks like, I think Pierce Brosnan is kind of doing a little bit of the same thing.
Yeah.
Although I don't know anyone who's seen any of those movies, but they keep popping up. It seems like maybe we should watch one of them. But it is such a durable template for cinema. Yeah. It's just as long as you've got a protagonist who's been wronged and is trying to correct that, it's easy to forgive them their sins in a lot of ways, and then usually they have to sort of have some sort of retribution, or they have to pay the moral code, the moral piper, for what they're doing by the end of it, and that's drama, man. It's conflict all the way through from the start to the finish.
Yeah, it is. It's all sort of built in. As long as you have a bad enough thing happen to the person at the beginning, you're pretty much set.
Yeah, and as long as you just set the camera there and just like turn it on and walk away for like 5 minutes while you're filming somebody doing nothing,
No matter what's happening,
audiences will go on that thrill ride.
you can shoot a movie in pretty much a day with 13 shots.
Well, do you have anything else you want to say about either of these movies? I mean, do you think you will watch Samsung at some point in your life before you shuffle off this mortal coil?
I don't think I will.
It sounds like you don't need to. I think you saw more of that movie than you probably need to see any additional amount. And I've seen none of The Swap, really.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
I think you are going to have to watch The Swap, but I don't think I have to watch Samsung.
I hate you.
Yeah, at least in yours, there did seem to be a swap of people. Well, I guess it was the same in mine. Maybe there's like the swap of the women. But I mean, it made no difference to.
I would say, but that doesn't even sound like it's that has nothing to do with the revenge plot. Does
Absolutely nothing.
No, and it has nothing to do with why De Niro got killed.
No. There's a lot of strife. I can't ever watch this again to try and figure out if it was they tried to tie it in somehow, but. Yeah, there was all that relationship strife, but it had nothing to do with why he got killed.
God, I'm still confused. So, De Niro gets the call about going away for the weekend.
He like talks about
and
lunch
then gets
or something.
knocked out.
What's that?
And then gets knocked out.
Yeah, I think he hangs up the phone and then he gets knocked out, and then it's 10 years
later. That doesn't even make sense that he went on the trip. Then that's
no,
right?
Yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense at all.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. So the phone call he takes is about that trip.
Yes, I think so. I'm pretty if memory serves, yeah.
Well, it's possible to keep this at the highest possible confusion level. It's possible that he wasn't murdered that night and was just knocked out, and they just never explained the fact that they later killed him.
So he just went on this trip for the weekend and never said anything about getting knocked out or anything like that.
Yeah.
They were like, you might want to call the cops. Nah. Let's just go away to the country.
Let's go with you guys.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Good stuff.
That's really crazy. I gotta watch it now. Now I feel like I gotta watch it.
You probably do.
Well, that was a fun experiment.
It was. I wish there were more movies like this.
I know. There's gotta be though, right?
Yeah. The other thing I was kind of thinking about, although it's not exactly the same, are those two Exorcist movies that one uses some of the footage of the first one, but they're shot by two completely different people.
Oh, man, who was that? Was that Rennie Harlan and...
Paul Schrader.
Yes. I feel like I heard stories that it wasn't like Francis Coppola brought in to do some of like fix Event Horizon or something like this.
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of stuff does happen, but as far as like the same director making two movies out of one, basically, I do wonder like when the last time that's happened, or if it's
the other one I can think of is Plan 9, right? So that was a long time before, but they used a bunch of Bela Lugosi footage from something else that was shot.
Yeah, you're right.
In that. But yeah, I would love to know about more of these types of movies. I'd especially like to know about one that works really well. I would love to watch a movie that works really well that actually cannibalized another movie. The Limey, maybe? But the Limey doesn't really use a lot of the other footage. Do you remember that movie?
I do, the Soderbergh thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I forget which... That's like it borrows from like an earlier Terrence Stamp movie, right?
Yeah.
We'll have to look into this and do... Maybe we'll just do a whole series of like cannibalized films. It's kind of fun.
It is. It really is.
Craig.
Yeah.
We are about to unload a very special episode of the Never Heard of It podcast and have guest filmmaker and friend of the show, Todd Rohal, on to talk about a movie called
Reflections of Evil from 2002.
That's right, and you can find that on Vimeo and or YouTube. There is a bit of discussion that there are a couple different cuts out there. I honestly don't think it's gonna matter that much which one you see. Just, you gotta see this thing.
It is definitely a movie that is an experience, and it is definitely something to talk about. So get your friends, get some cocoa, get some sweaters, comfy sweaters, and gather around someone's laptop at work and watch it.
And, if you don't know who Todd Rohal is, look him up. We'll be talking about that next week some more. But yeah, it was great to have him on, and I think we got a really good show for you.
It's a good one.
Craig, I also just, real quickly, I did just look up this John Shade,
yes.
which was some confusion about director Jordan Leondopoulos.
Right.
Leondopoulos.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like he used John Shade as a pen name for his directing credit on the swap. And that apparently is a character from Vladimir Nabokov's novel Pale Fire. That may mean something to the literary folks out there.
That is interesting. Yeah, if we have any Nabokov scholars in the audience, I'd love to know the significance of this, if there is any, or if he just picked a book up at a library and turned to a page and pointed at it.
Yes, we'll talk about that on Never Read It
yeah.
next time. And last but not least, I would like to say a hearty hello and send people to check out a podcast friend of the show. If you look it up on iTunes, look up the Up Late Network. These guys are actually doing three podcasts, and they cover the gamut. Two of the guys are both familiar to the comic book industry and work in the comic book industry. So they got a podcast that talks about comics. They got one that talks about TV, and they got one called Marty that I haven't even listened to yet, but I'm dying to. That's all about movies that deal with time travel. And obviously a little shout out to Mr. McFly. So check that out and listen to some podcast.
And also, I think we would be remiss if we did not mention our sister podcast, maybe our uncle podcast. I don't know. I don't know. But there's a podcast out there called A Little Snack by two gentlemen who I think are solely still known as Monolith and Bear Trap. I'm not sure. Do they use their real names?
I don't think they have real names. I think that's it.
That's a good point. They only exist to create this podcast, and that's really what makes it the most interesting. Seek that out in iTunes. Seek it out. Listen to it. There are 100 or so episodes, so you got plenty to get through.
Yeah, you could probably listen to all of them before they record their next one even. So
yeah, they're very finicky. They want to make sure that every episode they make is absolutely the best it can be. I think they've actually recorded over 1,000 podcasts. I don't know if you know that. Yeah.
Okay.
But they only put out the very best. So
yeah,
go check it out. Go listen. Go leave reviews and stars.
I think it's a great idea. And as always, you can find us. We have a Facebook page now. You can check us out on Twitter at Never Podcast. Visit our website, neverheardpodcast.com, and you know what to do with all the rest. We're excited about the next episode, and we'll talk to you soon. Keep the suggestions coming. We're going to do one real soon.
All right. We'll see you next time.